Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Trumpet's Call. I'm Maria. I pray that you are holding on to faith and holding on to hope during these times. Welcome to another session of our Torah Tidbit. Well, welcome to our discussion on the Feast of Purim. This is a feast that's celebrated in the springtime before the Feast of Passover or Pesach. And so I will attempt to have a video concerning all of the feast days in this coming year. So that is my desire. And so we will begin with Purim. Now, Purim isn't one of the feast days that is designated by the Most High in the seven, but it is a part of our heritage. It's a part of our history. And so some choose to celebrate it. So it's completely optional whether or not you choose to celebrate it or not. But whether you do or whether you don't, at least you'll have some information about it, should you decide to, or just for your own edification. So the Feast of Purim is based on the book of Esther and our deliverance from the monster called Haman. I have done a video called The Summary of Esther, which I hope to release before this one, so you'll get an idea of the backstory of Esther, and I included some insights and how they parallel our current experience. I pray that I'll be able to upload that one first so you can have some backstory before you watch this video. So in this video, we're going to discuss how the Jewish people have historically celebrated Purim. Since we haven't been in charge of our feast days, we're looking to them to see how they've done it, and then we can modify as the scripture indicates and as the Ruach indicates. So I will go over how they celebrate it, and then we can make modifications based on what's in our own hearts. So as I said in the last video, it's kind of like it's a mesh of certain things. There's masquerading going on, there's giving, there's feasting. It's like a combination of different holidays all stuffed into one, the way they celebrate Purim. So we don't really know how our ancestors celebrated it, or if they did, or if they commemorated it. I'm sure they did. We're people who commemorate things like that. So we commemorated the Festival of Lights and the rebuilding, or the building, I should say, of Solomon's Temple. And so we like to celebrate things, momentous events and occasions in our history. So it stands to reason that we would have. We're just not sure how we did it. And those things will be restored to us once we get back into the land. But back to Esther. You know, Esther's a story of a young Hebrew woman who was chosen to be the queen of Persia. And so we can see our story in this story because she was orphaned. Her parents died, and then she rose to the status of royalty, and we can see ourselves in this. We can see ourselves as being outcast and fatherless and motherless, and then being raised to the status of royalty, almost as if by overnight. We can also see in the story of Haman how we need to be careful for the enemy of our souls that comes after us to kill what the Most High is trying to give birth to or trying to revive and elevate. And so in Mordecai, we see this persistence and sticking to the old way and not bowing down to the Hamans of the world and to the world system, not bending the knee to the world system, but being vigilant in prayer, but being vigilant to stand in the confidence of who you are as a Hebrew person, and taking confidence in our Elohim, in our Alua, not in anything that we can provide or bring to the table, but taking pride in who we are as a people. So we see that story, those themes played out throughout the book. So this is the way that they typically celebrate Purim in the Jewish tradition. So what they do is they typically, the day before, they have something that's called an Esther fast. So they fast from essentially sun up to sundown. So it's like a 12-hour fast. So they fast the day before just to remind themselves of that time that Esther fasted and called for a 3-day fast, praying for deliverance. So they do that. They fast the day before. And then they begin the day reading the story of Esther. So they may read it and discuss it and go into insight, but it's something that they remind themselves of. It's interesting that they're reminding themselves of our story. It's our story, but that's neither here nor there. But they read it in the morning, and then they read it in the evening. So they read it twice, and they read it publicly. But if you're doing this as your family, you can read it the morning of and the evening of, if you choose to do this. And you listen and you pay attention. Okay? And so what they also do is that whenever the name Haman is mentioned, they have people making sounds. They have people making unpleasant sounds at the mention of Haman's name. Once again, they're showing anger and frustration about something that happened to our people. It didn't happen to their people, it happened to our people. But I think that's very interesting. Another thing that they do is they give to the needy, but the needy Hebrews. See how they look out for one another? They find Jews who are in need and they give to them. So I recommend, if you're going to celebrate this, find a family in need and give into their bosom. A Hebrew family. Find a Hebrew family in need, or just allow the Ruach to lead you to someone to be a blessing to them. Perhaps there's a ministry that you watch or an assembly or something that you are blessed by, give into their bosom. But preferably, I would say, a family would be best. That's my personal preference. A family would be best. And so it's to foster a sense of Hebrew unity, okay? Another thing they do is they send food gifts to friends or family. So they'll give gifts of food. My recommendation here would be to find a family, once again, in need and bring them some groceries. If you know about that, get them some groceries or send them a gift card to a grocery store or something of that nature. Or if you don't know anyone who has a need, pray and ask the Ruach to show you someone who you may know, or maybe you don't even know the person, to give into their bosom with regard to food and gifts. Okay? Another thing they do is they come together the night of Purim and they feast. They have a feast, they have a big celebration, and they just have plenty of songs, and they sing and they dance, and they just have a good time. It's always a good time to fellowship with other Hebrews if you can. So if you choose to celebrate this, it's a time to come together with others. If you celebrate it with just your family, you can perhaps have a special meal and just remember that time. Remember, after the reading of the book of Esther, of the story of Hadassah, her Hebrew name, you can remember our time in that particular captivity and remember how the Most High delivered us from the Hamans of the world. Okay? So another thing that they do is they have special prayers. They pray during the meals, before and after the meals, and they thank the Most High for his miracles, his redemptions, his mighty acts, his saving deeds, and his wonders. So that's certainly a wonderful thing for us to pray as well. Okay? In the morning, they read the book of Exodus, and they read about how the Most High waged war against the Amalekites, Haman's ancestral nation, who, if you look back, and I've discussed this in the previous video, who the origin of the Amalekites are. So there's an interesting tie to them. It's essentially, they are the descendants of the people they're praying against in that prayer. That's interesting. It's really interesting. It's just really wonderful. So another thing they do is they dress up. They dress up in costume. They say this is the best part. They dress up in costume, all kinds of costume. I saw pictures of them dressed up as clowns or as like really dark looking characters. So that's not preferable. So we don't do that. We wouldn't do anything like that. So this is something that they also do. They have half coins and they just give them to charity, or they just walk on the street and they'll give a half coin, a $50 coin to someone. So for them, it's just a time of celebration. It's a time of remembrance. It's a time of feasting. It's a time to come together as a family and as a larger community to remember, to zakar. And so I highly recommend that within your own family, if you choose to keep this feast. But we must do it in a way that's honoring to the Most High. No dressing up, no pagan revelry or any of that stuff that they may involve in their feast. And I would also recommend that you celebrate it at the time that they do, I suppose, which is the 15th of Adar. The 15th of Adar was originally the date that the feast was celebrated, because it was on the 14th of Adar that Haman had cast lots, which is called Pur, P-U-R. It's casting of lots, or the casting of Purim, in which Haman determined that Adar 14 would be the day when all the Hebrews in the region would be massacred and their property stolen. So when the tables were turned on them, it was actually the Hebrews who were allowed to go out and massacre their enemies and take their booty from them. Then the day of celebration was the day after that, so which is Adar 15. So this year, I believe in the year 2022, this is going to be celebrated on March 17th. March 17th. It begins Wednesday night, the 16th, which is when you would read the book of Esther and you would begin your fast as well the day before. So I will say the dates of Purim for this year, according to Chabad.org, is March 16th and March 17th. Okay? So if you choose to celebrate this feast, this is when you would do it, and I've described some ways of how you would do it. But I think that the idea of giving into the bosoms of our Hebrew brothers and sisters to be a wonderful idea, and I recommend it be something that you think about throughout the year, that you be always be in prayer and asking the Most High, is there someone in need that I can give to of my brethren, of my brothers and sisters, or is there somewhere you want me to be giving my funds to? You know, Christianity taught us that we're supposed to be giving tithes to their church. Well, if you're no longer in a church, you have the opportunity to use the funds and the means that the Most High has given into your bosom to be a blessing to our people. I think being a blessing to our people is ideal, okay? And if you're a Gentile and you're watching this, I recommend too that you be a blessing to the Hebrew people, okay? Because the scriptures teach us that he who looks after and favors and gives into the bosom of Israel, that's something that's pleasing to the Most High. So if you're a Gentile and you're watching this, you should be thinking about how you can be a blessing and how you can Baruch the Most High's people, not just at Purim, but at other times throughout the year. Once you determine who the Most High's people are, Gentiles, it's a wonderful thing to be able to give into their bosom and to be able to help and support the Most High's people. I believe that that is pleasing in His sight. Okay? This is the end of my discussion on Purim. If you have any questions regarding it, please put it in the comment section and I will address it as best as I am able to. One thing I did note in the other video summary on the book of Esther, and I'll note it here as well, that this story took place during the time of our Babylonian captivity. Persia had come and had defeated the Babylonians and had now taken over the provinces of Babylon and had brought some of the Hebrews into their provinces. This was in Shushan, which is the capital of the Persian Empire. So I'm not exactly sure how Mordecai and Esther ended up in Shushan, but they were there, as well as other Hebrews living there. Perhaps they were brought there to serve in the king's palace. Shushan was the winter palace of the king. And so as I read the story, it was remarkable to me that this story happened during the time when the king, Cyrus, had already issued the decree that Hebrews could return home. There had already been one return under Sheshbazzar in 538. But here we are, and Esther was made queen in 479 BC, and they're still there. They're still in the regions of their enemies. And I thought to myself, I wonder if something similar could happen here, where the Most High gives us indications that it's time for us to return to the land, yet many of us remain. But note what happened to those who remained. The Hamans of the world came after them. Okay? Just note that. And so when the Most High gives us an indication it's time to go, we must go. Some people, after much prayer and discussion with their family members, and seeking wise counsel, have decided that the Most High has given them leave to go, and they have moved to the motherland. So if that is something that the Most High is speaking to your heart about, I would heed that, okay? I would heed that. I do believe that there's going to be a large-scale exodus for us, but who knows how the Most High is going to do it? Who knows if He won't do it in stages? We just don't know. So we have to have our hearts and our minds open to receive His guidance. I pray that this lesson has instructed you and informed you, and that you got something out of it that you can use either in your life or to celebrate the Feast of Purim. May the Most High Baruch bless, and keep you, brothers and sisters. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and grant you shalom, peace, peace, and more peace. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining me once again on the channel. I appreciate you all very much. Shalom and shalom.